Welcome to the game show. Welcome. In this game show, we are going to talk about the rectangle and the circle, or this kind of the square thingy and the circle. And the carpet. It's hard for you to see. But anyways, on this show, we are going to radio broadcast to those who are able to hear from their heart. And so, the message that I would like to send out is, I hold in my vision a system that allows us to connect in a variety of different ways. No matter where we are in the world, whether we have a smartphone or not, but the smartphone is an accelerator of a variety of different timelines or pathways we can go on somewhat simultaneously, but in the end, there will be a definite threshold before we reach the new beginning. And so, it is nighttime, the sun has set, and I find that this time is the good preparation time to see what is possible to experience in the daytime. Not necessarily what we can do in the daytime, that can be a valid way of putting it, but what we would like to experience. How can we be of service, and how can we detach from having to save people or even the world? Saving ourselves can sometimes be all right to consider, but what does that really mean in a world that doesn't seem like it's oftentimes able to be a place where people can actually save themselves? But there are notable figures throughout time that have some of which have sacrificed their lives for the heart of humanity. And on this game show, I am radio broadcasting, hopefully to synergize Facebook, YouTube, Discord, Rumble, Kick, Twitch, Snapchat, Instagram. I don't have accounts for some of these platforms. Reddit, Quora, and there's probably more. The academia, the universities, the peer, but I'm open to just many channels. But at the same time, it's important to be practical and state the principle that I am a representative of the mystical branch rather than the scientific branch. And in that branch that I am in, or that department, it's important that I let you know that one of my capabilities is being a network facilitator or a ARC initiator. Sometimes it can be referred in another way. And the initiation, or let me take a step back. While I'm sitting, and taking all these social media platforms and considering that there is a way to connect a local or an in-person pipeline, railroad, outlet. And it may not be ideal where this place is and how we're doing it. But it's difficult sometimes to even fathom that I could be outside of this building interacting with people, inquiring to see if they would like to be a part of the movie, whether it's recorded or not. But talk about systems that can work for everyone, the collective and the individual, systems that can help us expose evil, the elite, duality, superiority, ideology, victimhood, and get to the core of our creativity, our virtues, with the people, for the people, as the people. Knowing our points of navigation to step back are important because we do not want to burn ourselves out. But I'm trying to light a flame in this room. I don't know if you can see it. But I am imagining in my consciousness a bridge between the online world and the in-person world, and at a critical mass, at one end or the other, they will ignite the other end of the equation, of the river, of the line. And how can we do this? Well, let's specify what is the intention and the ideal. The intention is to see what is possible with each other, and the ideal is to see how we can use our consciousness as a stepping stone for evolving our in-person potential in our jobs, or in the jobs we're trying to create, the organizations, the movements, the collectives, the departments, the institutions, the platforms, the families, the neighborhoods, the communities, the states, the nations, the continents, the hemispheres, and the worlds that are involved with this world. And they can be present in the room when you acknowledge the diversity of what might be in our universe, where there are other Earth-like planets, or there are other civilizations and races and societies, and so many different storylines and tragedies and beautiful aspects, integrating nature, integrating technology and infrastructure, and organic evolution, genuine and authentic, non-forced evolution, not evolution by violence. But anyways, we're at 9 minutes, and I'm streaming to you live. What is this, through YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or Reddit, or where would this be? X, Rumble, Kick, Twitch? Where is this going to be? Or do you want to come to 525 5th Street? San Francisco, California, United States, North America, Western Hemisphere, planet Earth. There's probably a name for our galaxy at a higher level of consciousness. Sorry, solar system. We know the Milky Way galaxy is the name of. But there might be other names, that's just how we name it from Earth. Anyways, it might be beyond a name anyways. But this is my attempt to try to unite consciousness, to unite originations that are all interdependent through our ability to transcend our consciousness, grounding our rights, our voice, our fire, our flame, our creativity, our dreams, our principles. Into the daytime, while in the nighttime we might draw into a rehabilitory like mode, hibernating, contemplating, meditating, even though everything is meditation. It's just there are cycles and different mechanisms to engage, even though there's no real easy manual for all of this. Many books, right? Many sources of information, but all right, well, this carpet tells a story. The ceiling tells a story. And a lot of people will be like, well, you won't necessarily be able to get paid money and survive off of these ideas about connecting the social media platforms. Plus, how are you even going to connect them if you're just sending this on one platform? Where are you sending them to? How are you guys going to communicate? How are you going to connect the local situation that you are personally in? And I've mentioned it in some of my videos, but there are still fears in some regard. Some things that I don't feel like I have control over. Well, there's a lot of things, right? There's a lot of things we don't. But at the same time, when we acknowledge that, we see that there are definite certain things that are in our capacity to maneuver and steer. That can be on a whole global level. It's just, how are we willing to balance this equation of unattachment and dynamic engagement, or at least aligned engagement, right? Attuned, like an instrument tuning. But even if an instrument is tuned, you still need to know how to play the instrument. So if you're tuned to the frequency of unity and diversity, you will also need to speak a language that makes tangible for people that are situations and circumstances of lack and fear and war and poverty and disaster and chaos and suffering and escapism and isolation and polarization and many other forms. These states can be addressed by our will to bring an account and a record to the world of a 24/7 system where people can go to. And I've created a sort of Discord server, and I think it's worth explaining, like, what's Discord, or how to use Discord. And sure, someone can find a bunch of this information kind of easily, maybe not. It depends on the person, and kind of sometimes it depends on a culture, some of which could be very, we can say, behind in certain respects, but that doesn't mean that they are lesser than. To provide a link to the world of the greater world, not only within us, but outside this world, even though there really is no separation. I don't know if you're getting tired of this angle. And so when you look into the eyes of another person, in essence, what you are seeing, instead of 3 eyes that I'm seeing right now, 3 cameras from my phone, kind of like a spider, what I am acknowledging is that what you see is what your projection is of yourself. And what that means for me right now is that you can sort of envision a will to surrender a particular detailed, mapped out system, vision of how everything is going to go in order for things to get better, and still acknowledge that there are definite principles and capacities, pathways that can be engaged with to help further the developmental evolution and acceleration of our institutions, our cultures, our societies, our individual selves. We need radio networking, internet technology, broadcasting, transmitter networks, transmission networks. What does that mean? The ability to release something, that there is more to life than many of the manipulative ideas that have been seeded through our institutions. The world now wants, the telepathic communication that I receive from the world is that the examples is the amount of energy that we express in forms of isolating or trying to doubt and distrust the time and energy that we have the free time that we have to the freedom of the soul, of the people, of the race, of our mind, free from those ideas, free to express other ways of reacting to the hatred and the violence, the exploitation, the abuse, the idolatry, the materialism, the superiority, the passivism, the nihilism. That allow us to see that our talents and our experiences and our gifts put together will actually create a fire that gives us more than what we could receive, even if we worked hard and accumulating as much as we could for ourselves or our family, or even if it's just like your community, maybe even your nation. I think we're at a time where we got to think global. Some people are like, oh no, we need to care about our own nation before we care about other nations, but truly there are no borders. Yeah, there are language differences, and there's language of mathematics and science and art and mysticism, but detecting the value of the ideas released through them requires many lifetimes, a number that I probably cannot imagine, a history that goes beyond our known history that we think we have. And so with that being said, I want to welcome you into my local or my international space. When I say international, I mean the internet. Sure, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, other countries have limited internet range capacity to receive, but I believe they'll eventually get there. But until then, there are many countries that are waking up to what can be shared on the internet. And I feel like this is a signal from, like, as an example, a cell in our body sending a signal to a way in which we can redistribute resources and wealth, so that we actually realize there is no lack of resources, there is no real scarcity. It was just a lack of will to find the consciousness, the discernment to stand and use our voice and detach from always having to be in the thick of the battle, so to speak. But there is a battlefield oftentimes in many places, but some of that, probably more so than we realize, can be perceptional. And that is kind of the journey that we're all on. But I feel like I've shared what I wanted to share. This kind of might feel like a strange video, and it should be, because I'm like, every time I express myself, I try to tune into a different way and a more evolved way that life in and through me could be like. Because is this not a play? But then the world telepathically often says you have to be serious. Look at your situation. Look at your money. Look at your you don't have a job. You don't have a place to call your own. You don't have a will to apply for jobs so much. I'm not saying jobs are bad. People shouldn't apply their job, or they should quit their job. I'm not saying that. But the world is telepathically telling me, on many levels, not all levels, that I am going to end up in a very bad situation. But I'm trying to carve and mold and alchemize, infuse this situation that I'm in into the brightest. And what is the brightest? Well, what if the social media platforms can in some ways fuse together? Would I have to have an account on every platform and talk about a need to synthesize in our own local situation and into an open source platform that doesn't try to close itself off from the other platforms? We live in a time where I can't speak very much about this subject, but communication between local and international networks is very much like a labyrinth, as far as knowing in some form where we could share and where we might be able to expect a return in order to materially get the nutrition, get the security, get the things that we need to continue to live in our body. There's more to this statement, but I seem to have forgotten. Anyways, I think I have shared what I've wanted to share. And I feel this room has helped ignite this, because I may have not have been able to create this without the room. Sometimes I think it's important to really transcend that mindset where we don't wait for things to be nice around us or for us to have a small, comfortable, safe space around us in order to really get deep and real and raw and to the core. But anyways, I think I've shared what I really wanted to share. And eventually I will be able to get to a point where it'll be easier for me to really experience this core and the points that are on it, in it, and flowing through it every moment. But Discord is a communication platform, and I imagine it being a safe space 24/7. And if you have a Discord or a platform or a local situation that you may wish me to come to, you are welcome to invite me. And if you need assistance in maybe describing how we can work out the platform thing, all right. But I know the world has not received what they would consider or what they would consider a valid answer towards its critique that my system isn't a real system. You're doing this through YouTube, or you're picking, or maybe you upload to multiple, but you're not going to create an account and try to connect with the community of each platform. Anyways, the world will always be able to have its say. But for right now, there is a practical reality in applying for jobs in order to get basic things, basic needs. And if one doesn't do that, well, there might be various forms of illusion, psychological illusion, illness, spiritual illness, scientific illness. There are layers and degrees and spectrums and so forth to these things, but it could also mean that someone is trying to test out other ways that are possible to live. And from 2015, I began that journey in this lifetime on a significant, it even started before on some level, but the conscious recognition to be seriously engaged and activated and accelerated didn't start till 2015. And I'm not going to say in 2015, sorry, I said And it's okay that I said sorry, even though I don't need to be sorry. And it's understandable why I would say I'm sorry right there. But sometimes you don't know, even when I say A lot of people are beginning to say that. And it can have different consequences depending on how it's used. So, if you're still here, welcome to the show. We're going to be closing shop here in a moment, but if I were to say one last thing in one last minute, it would be we may not be able to connect on a local level or even on an internet level because of certain limitations, but it is my hope that when the sun is highest in the sky, we can connect to our deepest sun in our heart that will allow us to see the beauty of the night, the dark, and that we can be reborn by communicating in different ways together, and even as an individual. but though we might forget if we don't necessarily try to connect in some consequential way. But anyways, I can see the results of this video and how it affects in some way the consciousness of the different layers of this world. And yeah, this is, a lot of people will not get to this point. And it doesn't mean that you're any better than anyone else if you do. This is a boring image you have maybe in front of you, but there might be another image within it that I'm trying to paint here. And I went over a minute. How about that? But if you need help with Discord or any ideas, any questions, you're welcome to reach out. But sometimes I take a long time to respond. And I might not even respond depending on what it is. But I do try to respond to everyone in my circle who considers another way might be possible than the way that we have been perceiving, whether it was a moment ago or a decade ago or a lifetime ago, a civilization, an epoch. But regardless, I honor us as human beings dressed up in a costume that we unknowingly oftentimes walk in every day. And that costume is the universe. Welcome aboard, everyone. Welcome aboard to the grand ship that never truly ends.